Welcome back to another edition of Ari Squared. We are your host, Ari Lev and Ari Berkowitz, coming to you on a Tuesday. And guys, we now have social clips on our Instagram, and for that matter, on YouTube Shorts. So if you haven't already subscribed to Ari Square on YouTube or given us a follow on Instagram, this is absolutely the time to do it because they are now fun, informative, and I would say enjoyable social clips going up on Instagram throughout the week. So that way you can stay connected to Ari Squared throughout the week and not just when you're listening to our episode. And of course, we can be found on all podcast platforms where you can go ahead and leave us, where relevant, a 5-star review. So Ari, you are looking, I don't know, is it rabbinical? Would that be the right word with your non-shaven face and beard there?
You know, I'll actually share a short anecdote about the beard as those of us that are Orthodox inclined and can what's the word, abstain from shaving. Obviously, for work and business, you're allowed to shave, but here in Israel, it's less of an issue, so I tend to stick to it. But yeah, that's I was supposed to have a meeting today with someone that I probably shouldn't have had a beard for, and I spent about 45 minutes looking into if it's okay to shave on the 2 days before Tisha B'Av, and then got wrapped up in learning and didn't end up having the time to shave. Long story short, the guy didn't even show up, so I feel very holy right now, Ari. That's basically the gist of the story.
Well, what can I say, Ari? You are a righteous person and making your father, who is a rabbi, very proud.
I appreciate that.
So, back on to football-related topics. Nothing really new happened in the NFL. I think that everybody, all the general managers are really starting to they're almost, I think they're eating a little bit less antacids these days. Tom stock is going down. I would say the closest thing to a scare that happened in the NFL this week involved, yes, another giant, where at Fan Fanatics Fest, Cam Scadaboo decided to do, amongst other things, a backflip on his surgically repaired knee, to which he stumbled and freaked out the entire fan base. With that being said, he gave an explanation in an interview after that it was because it was on a bouncy type of ground. He landed safely. His knee is good, but fingers crossed that he actually makes it through the season because he's a hell of a running back, and I'm excited to see what he does across the line. But thankfully, not too much news happening out there. But Ari, it is crazy to think that we are so close. We are 50 days away from NFL kickoff. We are, August 6th already is the Hall of Fame game. So football is practically back, baby. And I could not be more excited. And now that everybody's fake football fandom is over, we can go back and focus on the football that we all know and love, which is our NFL, actual real football, even though you throw it in the NFL. So, Ari, why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners what we're going to be discussing over the course of this episode?
Well, I just wanted to mention one other interesting tidbit about a different New York team that happened since our last recording, which is the NFL decided to move on from the whole Geno saga. As long as no new information comes to light, that has been, curbed. So, with that being said, we are going to be discussing running back rankings, okay? And we are trying to get the rest of our rankings for positions that you'd be drafting in fantasy in as quick as possible. So we're going to be doing tight end rankings next week, and we're going to be doing the AFC North preview, which is going to be very fun. And hopefully we will have time to delve into a lesser-known subject, especially for the less engaged football fans, which is special teams, if we have the time for that. So, Ari Lev, what do you think of, our three running backs who didn't quite make our top 10. Do you want to lead off with our honorable mentions and speak a little bit about those guys?
Sure. I would absolutely love to do that. And even before getting to the specific honorable mentions, I'll say this, is that when it comes to running backs in the NFL, and if we're going to even, specifically focus on fantasy for a moment, what I find to be very interesting is it is, generally speaking, a dangerous thing in fantasy football to go ahead and select last year's top running back. Yes, are there players that are able to do it back to back? Let's say, for example, like Jahmyr Gibbs, sure. But on the flip side, and I'm sure you've been through this, I've definitely been through this, where you take last year's running back, leader, and he ends up getting injured or having a terrible season because his production has really fallen off. And it's very important that if you're looking at things from a fantasy perspective, you've really got to pay attention to what are they doing in camp, how did their summer go, and things like that before you really just don't. I would say is the best way to approach this is don't just rely on someone's previous year's production and think that it's going to necessarily repeat itself. And I think a great example of that that's on this list would be Saquon Barkley, which we'll get to in a moment, of where could he have another 2,000-yard season? Maybe. Is it more likely that he's going to have a sub-1,000-yard system? Yes. So not system, season. But I would definitely go ahead and take that into consideration. Now, going to our honorable mentions, we have Jadarian Price, Travion Henderson, and Ashton Genty. I would say could they all fought themselves into the top 10 this season? Sure. Could they also not do well this season? Sure. I mean, in Jadarian Price's case, my God, his workout videos on Instagram look nuts. But then again, everybody's always do. But could he crack into the top 10? Sure. Would it surprise me? No, not at all. But, wait and see, especially given the fact that he has not yet done it in the NFL. In regards to Travion Henderson, yeah, he's a decent to good back. And I think he could potentially have another good season. With that being said, I think all Pats players are going to take a step back, aside from maybe Drake May, but I think they're all going to take a step backwards. I think their record's going to go backwards. And finally, when it comes to Ashton Genty, there was so much hope for him coming out. Everybody thought he was going to be like the Jeremiyah Love of a year or two ago, but he wasn't. Can you chalk that up to bad coaching? Maybe. Could you chalk that up to bad QB play? Yeah, maybe as well. But new system, new QB, new O-line, new center. There's a lot of new going on. So can he potentially finally live up to the hype? Sure. If not, and he doesn't, we'll probably consider him a bust, and I don't think he'll even be in the honorable mention for next year. So just kicking off our list with our honorable mentions, that's the list we went with. And all right, I got a question for you, actually. So looking at the top 10 list that we put together here, who would you say is your guaranteed lock, let's say? Like, meaning I don't care if he's ranked 8th, I don't care if he's ranked 10th. Who, from your perspective from this list, is an absolute lock for an awesome season, assuming, of course, they don't get injured?
So that's a great question. So assuming they don't get injured is, a huge factor, especially when considering Jonathan Taylor or Derrick Henry or even Breece Hall. And basically, I would probably go with Bijan Robinson. That's who I would go with as the absolute lock. It's kind of funny to me, especially that you mentioned Genty and everyone. It's kind of like these guys that are drafted that are expected to be like superstars from the moment they get on the field. And if you look at Bijan Robinson's career, he's kind of gotten better every single year and has become more of a complete back, more in, pro football shape. And basically what it comes down to is the guy had 2,300 scrimmage yards last year. He had only 11 touchdowns, so I think that can tick up. But I really think he's going into this year as a 24-year-old, and I think that he is like, as good as anyone and building himself up. Now, would I put him on as my number one guy going into this year? Probably not. But I think that he's close enough and has shown that kind of like upward trajectory year over year that you look for when asking me about certainty for next year. If I had to give one guy that would definitely be top 5, that would be my pick.
All right. I like it, Ari. I like it. So let's now dive into our list. We went number 10 with Jeremiyah Love. Can he live up to the hype? Can he repeat what he did in college? I think those are the biggest questions that remain. He's also playing with not a great new head coach. He's got not the best of QB plays. Their line is nothing to write home about, but if he's truly that generational talent superstar that he is supposed to be, none of that's going to matter, and he's going to have a great season. So I would say putting him in number 10. Does he have talent to be top 5? Absolutely, but he's got to do it. He's just simply got to do it before we can crown him anything more than in the number 10 spot. So, Ari, why don't you talk about number 9?
Sure thing. At number 9, we got Saquon Barkley, who's kind of the exact, we want to make sure that guy doesn't, what happened to him last year doesn't happen to some of these guys. And that's why, he gets to number 9, even though he's had the illustrious career, kind of like Derrick Henry before he went to the Ravens. We all know how talented Saquon Barkley is and can be. But he is at a, kind of scary age, and he has put on some film that has not been quite as illustrious recently, and it could be given the large workload that he's had, or the fact that the Eagles are kind of fading overall. You pick whichever one you want to go with, but he could reinstall himself as as good as some of the best older backs in the league, or he could just simply get to a point where he is not even a top 10 running back anymore. So that's the interesting thing about Saquon. Ari, do you want to go with our number 8 guy?
Sure, absolutely. So we got your boy, Breece Hall, coming in at number 8. And, he's been a very intriguing player, definitely improved. And, for him, and for that matter, for you as a Jets fan, I'd love to see him take that really extra step forward and have a phenomenal season. And if Geno Smith is going to have success, a lot of it is going to rely on how well Breece Hall plays. Because at the end of the day, I don't think there's a person in the world that says, hey, I want Geno Smith slinging it 45 times a game. We want to be able to have Breece Hall, and for that matter, the rest of the Jets running back room, they got to be able to be taking, I would say 60% of the snaps overall. Meaning, I would suggest their path to success is at least 60% running plays versus 40% passing plays. But does he have all the tangibles? Yeah, I definitely think he does. Can he put it all together with, again, a quarterback like Geno Smith and a coach like Aaron Glenn? The jury's out on that one, and we'll definitely see throughout the season. So that's our number 8. Ari, number 7, my friend.
Number 7, we got Derrick Henry, who we alluded to before. Again, this guy, I kind of have to put him into the bucket of he's going to be there until he shows that he can't be there. And everything that he's done, especially in the run forward offense that the Ravens have had, he's looked phenomenal. Now, going into a system where he no longer has, the same coaching staff that he's had, and they're going to start using a different run scheme, and, maybe the offense around Lamar Jackson is going to look a little bit different, plus his age. That's why we didn't feel like he could be higher than number 7 based up purely on production, as well as, the quintessential elite 3-down back, and every single thing that you look for in an elite back, whether it's size, speed, ability to run past guys, ability to run over guys, ability to deke, ability to take the ball to the house, obviously. And he's just been doing it for so long. You got to give him the benefit of the doubt, and Derrick Henry is our number 7.
All right, and we all know that the number before 7 is 6. So transitioning over to 6-7, we have Devon Achane of the Miami Dolphins. And it was funny when, what I would say about him is the following, is that everybody on the Dolphins this year during the offseason seemed to be, for sale. And whether we saw, it was Waddle who was traded away to the Broncos, everybody seemed to be for sale. And there was briefly a moment there where it really seemed like they might try to get, use him as a commodity and trade him as well. But if there was one player that the Dolphins, top to bottom, were refusing to go ahead and even contemplate trading away, it was him. So I think he had a great season. He had arguably one of the better running back seasons, in the NFL last year, and that was with Tua, Mr. CT himself, Mr. I quit on my teammates himself, as his QB, Mr. I am terrible in and for the locker room, and all of those things combined. Despite all of that, he was really, he really kind of came through. And so I think that he has potential throughout the year to get himself even higher up on this list, but that's why we put him at number 6.
Yes. And at number 5, we got Jonathan Taylor again. A third out of a foursome of older but still elite running backs. Jonathan Taylor, I mean, how many touchdowns did he have last year? What was it, 19 rushing touchdowns? The dude is a beast. If he could have a full season of Daniel Jones, if the Colts could have that, and with the progression of Bernard Ryman and the rest of their offensive line picking up, and the fact that they've invested a little bit more in it. What is there not to say about Jonathan Taylor? I mean, again, power runner, explosive, elite vision. And he's capable of carrying an entire offense, and has been asked to do that a little too many times in his time with the Colts, and we're hoping for to see what he can do in a high octane offense for a full season, and hopefully he doesn't slow down. And but he's one of those key pivot guys on this list that with a down year he'd probably get bumped off of the top 10, let alone being the first guy in our top 5.
All right, which brings us to number 4, James Cook. James Cook, it's so interesting how he started out, he really wasn't doing much, and then all of a sudden he just became this cowbell, reliable running back that that no matter what, he became a pretty integral part of the success. And it's quite amazing to see him do that. I still think he's got some of his best football, in front of him. And I'm hoping to see a really big year out of him. And I think I would say he's a very safe bet to have a good season. He doesn't carry some of the concerns that some of the other running backs on this list carry for me. And I think that we're, going to have another solid, consistent yards and touchdown filled season for James Cook. So James Cook at number 4.
Yeah, so James Cook, and also it's cool because his number is number 4. He just could not be lower on this list given what he did last year. But as what you were saying earlier comes into play, James Cook is my guy that I'm most scared of. He had a breakout season last year, and beforehand he had always shown a lot of promise, but he never really put it together like he did last year. And he was just phenomenal. And the entire Bills run game was ridiculous. Josh Allen averaged more yards per carry than Cook did. And one other thing that I'd really like to mention specifically about James Cook is his brother Dalvin had a really, really early decline. And one season just he had been, a top 3 back for 3 seasons or 4 seasons, and then all of a sudden just disappeared and never came back. And when the Jets picked him up after his down year with the Vikings, I was like, oh, wow, one bad year, and they're kind of discarding Dalvin Cook. What a smart pickup by the Jets. And I think a year later he was out of the league. So I would just be mindful of that as well with James Cook. Just something about the whole situation there doesn't quite feel, elite to me. Again, his season and his numbers say enough on their own. And he is, as he is on his jersey, number 4. Sorry for the long, everything about James Cook, but number 3 is CMC, Christian McCaffrey. What is there? And I'll let you, Ari. I'll let you go into Christian McCaffrey. But basically, he became the prototype for every running back to come into the league after him, whether it's Jeremiyah Love now or litany of other guys. But these guys that are 3 down backs because they can catch the ball out of the backfield and can run like a beast. And he is the prototype. So with that, I'll throw it back to you, Ari, for more feedback on CMC.
What's quite incredible about CMC is the success that he had with the Panthers, and then the equal, if not more success that he's been able to have with the 49ers. And that guy just puts so much time, effort, money, whatever you want, into making sure that his body stays right and ready. And I feel like he has the potential to be that kind of like ageless wonder of where he's going to be able to kind of be elite all the way through his playing career. And I don't think that we're going to see quite nearly the same amount of decline that we see with other running backs as we see them starting to get older. And, CMC, you can rely on the fact that he is going to have a hell of a lot of yards, not just in the run game, but in, from scrimmage as a general thing and in the passing game. And yeah, CMC is, anytime the ball is in his hands, that could be a home run hit, 70-yard touchdown, a deep post down the sideline, which he then turns into a long catch or into a touchdown. He's tough as hell and really absolutely deserves his number 3 spot. And I think just as a general thing for our top 3, I really think that they were interchangeable and that, you could make the argument for each one of them to maybe have been in a different spot within the top 3, but CMC definitely well-deserved his 3rd place spot.
And Ari, what do you feel? Do you feel like the moves that the Niners made this offseason to finally, fill in the spots that have kind of been vacated by Debo and Ayuk for the past couple seasons, do you think this is going to lessen his production, or do you think this is just going to help alleviate some of the tension from defenses for CMC and the Niners?
I think that great question, Ari. I think that for this year, I feel like they're not going to reduce his role. He's not going to have less carries. What I do think it will do for him is that if now you can maybe, leave a spy for him, you could double team him, you could cover him better in the passing game, because we all know that like the cupboard was kind of bare for their wide receiver room. With or without injuries, or with or without Brandon Ayuk just being Brandon Ayuk. I think he is definitely a player that, just not having him in the headlines. I mean, although he's still finding ways to get himself in the headlines, he keeps posting himself in Commanders jerseys, but yet then goes ahead and disses Jaden Daniels' mom and Jaden Daniels' relationship with his mom. So how is that going to go ahead and contribute to you getting off the Niners? And then why on earth would the Commanders want to sign you after that? Unfortunately, he seems to be, really rapidly, Ayuk, running his way towards the Antonio Brown Hall of Morons as opposed to the Hall of Fame. But I think they're going to get better. So to answer your question, I think that this the moves that they did, especially bringing Mike Evans, will actually increase CMC's productivity, not lessen.
That's a great one. I would like to see it happen, and they brought in so many receivers. It's just going to be fascinating to see what Shanahan does with all of them. Number 2 on our list, we got who I talked about before, Bijan Robinson. I'm curious to see his fit with, like you said previously, with Tua and your favorite guy,
Michael Penix.
Whichever one of them wins out that job, but more so than even the quarterback with Kevin Stefanski. We saw the Browns have a breakout running back in Quinshon Judkins last year, who also just missed the list, and we'll talk about that a bit at the end of our rankings. But basically, Bijan Robinson, I mean, he is the younger, faster, more athletic version of CMC. Obviously, he does not have the track record, but the skills, it's like max, it's like 99 on every single thing in fantasy, in Madden. And that's just why, as a 24-year-old going into the season, it's just going to be hard to beat him. But he does not have the offensive line of our number 1 guy, Ari.
Well, just before we hop on over to our number 1 guy, just warning for everybody looking to draft Bijan Robinson in fantasy. Make sure that you are drafting the right B. Robinson running back that plays for the Atlanta Falcons, because they signed Brian Robinson in the offseason as well. And I can already anticipate how many people out there who play fantasy football are going to be thinking that they are drafting Bijan Robinson, but accidentally drafting Brian Robinson instead. So just be fair warned that when you are drafting in fantasy, get the right B. Robinson, or it will be terrible.
So, Ari, what's going on with the Falcons and this like doppelganger stuff? They have like the only 2 left-handed quarterbacks in the NFL on the same roster. They have the only 2 B. Robinsons at running back on their roster. I mean, what is this? Are they going to get Quinton Spain to go along with Drake London? Like, is that what it's going to come down to?
I think that they're, look, some of their decisions make no sense either. So the best I can go with that the Atlanta Falcons are a glitch in the matrix.
I think we're going to go back to our line from last week, which is with regard to the Falcons, we just draw a blank.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it.
Which brings us to our number 1 spot, Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. What a guy, what a player, what a back, just also really just good dude all around beyond what he does on the field. His play off of the field is also incredible. I do think that he's going to be missing his boy, the other half of Sonic and Knuckles, now that David Montgomery was traded over to the Houston Texans in the offseason. But with that being said, Jahmyr Gibbs, very, very rightfully so, at the number 1 spot on our list. I'm very confident that he is going to be the number 1 back in the NFL this year. And I think that, they did get him some help, to, give him spelling between plays, etc. And he is going to be an absolute beast and monster again this year, and just make everybody's life on that offense just easier because he's there and going to play at the absolute insane level that he has until now. And to me, what's crazy is how much crap the Lions had taken at the time when they drafted him. They're like, oh, you're drafting a running back so high, and what are you doing? And he is just proving all the haters wrong. And he is definitely, he's helping make the running backs a great position again. And I'm very excited to see what he does again this year. And I hope for him that he's just going to have an awesome, awesome, awesome season again because, like I said, great dude.
Well, similarly to what we say about the Rams, and if you're finding wide receivers who are all pro in the 3rd to 6th round, and for that matter, the Seahawks, when they were drafting their defensive backs, all in the 3rd to 6th rounds, when you do that, you can spend a first round pick on a running back, and you can spend a first round pick on a linebacker like the Lions have done, or like people that ridicule the Rams for trading all of their first round picks too. So just, I mean, as a way to wrap this up, I was very intrigued when we were putting together this list by the amount of, single backfields that have kind of, and where the running back position as a whole has evolved to now, where we're kind of seeing guys getting drafted very early, meaning like they're not getting drafted at 24 anymore. They're getting drafted at like 21, maybe 22 of their first season. And so their first contract, but even their second contract, like Breece Hall and like CMC, and they're getting paid and they're performing. And it's just a worthwhile, even for that 1 year of Saquon, the Eagles made the right decision paying that guy. And the Giants also at the time made the right decision not to pay him for where their franchise was, and everything. But the fact of the matter is, as we get closer to Bijan and Gibbs getting to free agency, we're going to see them get a ton of money and really launch the running back position as a whole into a different stratosphere pay-wise. And just to put like the whole thing together is, if you look at the next 5, 6, or 7 running backs on the list, you can find guys like Cam Scatterbo and Chase Brown and Kenneth Walker, who are also going to be lead backs on their team. Josh Jacobs, you're going to find these guys who are going to be lead backs on their team. And it's more of a conversation of, is there 2 there 3, and is there 3 there 2? Then is there 2 going to take carries away from those guys? And you're really starting to see the pendulum shift back toward having a real number 1 running back, a real 3-down running back. And to me, that's just a fascinating trend in the NFL and speaks volumes to how the shifts of the pendulum occurs in professional sports, specifically football, with this.
Well said, Ari. And just in closing, who is your number 1 running back that is not on this list, not in the honorable mentions, that you believe is going to have a great season?
So I would pick, it's a hard one for me because there are some very interesting guys. Like, I think Chase Brown is going to take a huge step forward. There are a few guys that are on my bubble that I'd love to, get in fantasy, for example. But one guy, and that's Omarion Hampton, I think is his name. I always get confused between Hampton and Hampson, so I think it's Omarion Hampton.
It is, and you said the last thing, I think it was on our last episode when we were discussing him as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, well, for me, just because of Mike McDaniel and his run design and what he did with Devon Achane, I just think that he could have a nuts year, and his talent level is not, I wouldn't put him in the group of any of the 13 guys that we have, but his output could be tremendous given what Mike McDaniel could bring to that offense. And with Alt and Slater healthy at the tackle spots, could really, really, turn some heads. And he could be, this year's version of James Cook.
All right, excellent. All right, and that brings to our close our top 10 running back breakdown. And it's now time to move on over to the NFC North. Sorry, AFC North. There we go. We did the NFC North already, and now we're on over to the AFC North. And just before we do that, just letting everybody know, this is our 6th division that we are breaking down. On our next episode, we're actually going to do a combo of both the NFC East and the AFC East. So because the Giants play in the NFC East, Jets play in the AFC East, and we decided to do a East or Eastern division kind of joint breakdown together, since our teams both play in there. So that will be coming on our next episode. Now back to the AFC North. Ari, what would you say is, or you know what? We did this last week. Rank the QBs for me, Ari.
That's great. So I will do so. Number 1, I have Joe Burrow. Number 2, I have Lamar Jackson, and they're very close together. Number 3, I have Shador Sanders. And number 4, I have Drew Aller. Okay, those are my top 4 guys. I think something weird's gonna happen with Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. I just don't see Aaron. I feel like this year is gonna be very similar to Rodgers' first year with the Jets, and he's just like not gonna really show up for whatever form, and it's going to be Drew Aller's team. And by the end of the season, we're going to see that Drew Aller, pretty good guy, pretty good player. And we're going to be talking a lot more about the Steelers next year. That's my read on the 4 quarterbacks in the AFC North. Where do you agree and disagree with me, and expand on what you want to tell me about Rodgers and Drew Aller here, Ari?
Oh, you know me so well, Ari. I'm just going to start with Aaron Rodgers. Now, you said his first year with the Jets. Are you anticipating that he's going to run out for the first game holding the flag and blow out his knee, and his season's going to last 8 minutes? Is that what you're anticipating for Rodgers when you said that? Or did you just mean that he's just going to have a terrible season, it's not going to work, and he's going to get benched, and Drew Aller will take over?
I'm not even saying that those are the only 2 possibilities. I think that there's kind of the thing with Aaron Rodgers. It's like he gets a phone call from God who tells him, you know what? You should just not be playing football, and he'll just leave. Something like totally bizarre like that, or a story about how he has, some kind of issue, or some issue with him and McCarthy. Just something's not going to work out. I don't know if it's going to be training camp or it's going to be week 8, but it's going to be sometime in that time frame, and it's going to go awry. That's really what I think. It could cost Mike McCarthy his job, but I just don't. I see something very off about that whole situation in Pittsburgh. And yeah, I think there's a reason Mike Tomlin decided to leave. I think there's a reason Mike McCarthy is their head coach. And I think there's a reason why Aaron Rodgers took as long as he did to tell them he's coming back.
Well, first of all, he needed to do more ayahuasca before he even knew if he can come back or not. So that's kind of the delay. It was how soon he could get out to a dark room and, go on an ayahuasca trip. So that was really the delay there. Looking at the QBs over here, I agree with you in regard to Burrow one. And then after that, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is in an interesting kind of contract here, so it's going to be interesting to see what he does. Is he going to end up getting another record-breaking QB contract, or is he going to show that he can't stay healthy and that he really just can't take his team far in the playoffs? That'll be very interesting to see how that all plays out. I'm in agreement with you that Shador is going to win that battle between him and Deshaun Watson. And I think that even if it is Aaron Rodgers, I do believe he's going to be the lowest ranked QB, which is, considering his Hall of Fame career, kind of sad if that's the way he's going to go out. But I do think that he's going to rank last. I would say the question that comes to mind here for me is, are we going to see both the Browns and the Steelers draft a QB in the first round next year, when all signs are pointing that it is going to be the class of the QB next year in 2027?
So that's a very interesting one. And I actually think that Shador Sanders is better than what people are giving him credit for. Now, is he going to go on and have like a long, illustrious NFL career? I just don't know yet. And I just don't know how much of a, all of the background noise with his daddy and everything that goes on there, the fact that he really was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. It's hard to tell how much, as he grows into it, kind of like OBJ, that the more he grew into it, the more of an issue he became. So I'm curious how that's going to all pan out, but I do think that Shador Sanders is going to do enough that the Browns are going to end up not drafting in a position to even draft one of the best quarterbacks in the draft. And they're going to roll with Shador going into next year. I think they're going to have a better record than the Steelers. And I think they're going to be closer to the Ravens than they will be to the Steelers. That's how much I think that people are sleeping on the Shador, Todd Monken, and the receivers that they just picked up in the early stages of the draft, and they got 2 of them. I think that there's something that can be cooking there that could be exciting and win enough close games to really put them into a conversation toward the later stages of the season and be a borderline. I'm not saying they'll be in the playoffs, but be a borderline contender.
All right, I like your hot take there, Ari. And that would bring us to our next question in regards to this division. If you had to decide for each team, what is their strength? Is it a defensive strength or an offensive strength? Where would you rank each of these teams in terms of, or not rather rank, but rather give me your list of team and if it's an offensive strength or a defensive strength.
So if I look, the way that I see the division, and you can tell me if you think differently, but I really think that the Bengals, with the moves that they made this offseason, are going into this season with both the best offense and the best defense in that division. And that's why, to me, they're kind of separated out. It's basically like, as long as they can stay healthy, they'll be a Super Bowl contender. And if they can't stay healthy, then they may have to start thinking about blowing things up. But that's pretty much the factor. They're their own biggest enemy. And, again, like with the Ravens, like it kind of feels like Jesse Minter was thrown into there because they think they have enough talent on defense in order to just change the scheme, have Jesse Minter coach these guys up, and then they'll go. But if you take like what I think it was the owner, but it may have been DeCosta, was saying about the entire Max Crosby saga, that they wanted to get Crosby and Hendrickson, and that was the whole plan, but they didn't. So like they thought they needed 2 elite pass rushers and they only got 1. How is that going to affect their defense? What if Jesse Minter can't figure it out with the guys that were under Anthony Weaver's defense? And similarly to like Aaron Glenn coming over to the Jets, where Saleh coached up that defense and they were like, we have the pieces here, but we have to like recalibrate the system. And then it just goes completely awry. So what if that's the situation with the Ravens and they just need a reset here? And, Lamar Jackson, if he's healthy, even if they need a reset on defense, they'll still be there, right on the bubble. But if Lamar Jackson is kind of not, and their defense needs a reset, they could be what they look like through the first half of last year, which was not a very good football team.
So I agree with you, Ari. I absolutely agree that the Bengals do have the best offense and defense in the division. And I think that something that they have going for them, which I think will help them get over that typical slow start, is they're actually the only team in this division that has a returning head coach from last year. And so I think that that's going to bode very well for them. I think that this will give Zach Taylor that ability finally to get his team off to a quicker start. And yeah, I agree with you. If you cannot make it happen with the additions that they added this year, with the fact that they've got the returning head coach, you got hopefully a healthy Joe Burrow to start the season. I think that the expectations for the Bengals have got to be deep playoff run, if not possibly push for a Super Bowl appearance. I think that that's got to be their expectation for the season, or otherwise, yeah, like you said, it really might be time to start considering blowing it all up, or at least making a change at the head coaching position.
And that's exactly the kind of scenario that I could envision for next year's draft, with the amount of quarterbacks that will be going in the first round, is that a team like the Bengals and a team like the Ravens, after missing for 4, 5, 6 consecutive years and just not getting over the hump, decide to trade Lamar Jackson, decide to trade Joe Burrow after another season where they just couldn't do it, either didn't make it to the playoffs or first round exit, and they cashed them in for 2 or 3 first round picks, 1 being this year, couple being next year, and moving up in the draft to take that elite quarterback who they would pick. That's the kind of scenario that I could very much see happening if things go slightly off for one of those 2 teams. Ari, I will ask you the question that you usually ask me, but I kind of got there beforehand, which is, What do you think is, the craziest thing or one crazy call that you want to make about the AFC North before the season?
Oh, okay. Here's a crazy take. There is only going to be one playoff team from the AFC North this year, and that will be the division winner. Whoever does not win the division will not be making the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a great one, and I think it really jives with the strength of the AFC West, and and the fact, like, you could make a strong case, like, if the Ravens play down a little bit, are they really, before that, you have the strength of the AFC West, and then you have the two very, very good teams in the AFC East. And I think enough said. And when we were talking about the AFC South, we were kind of talking about how all four teams could surprise. So, I mean, yeah, it looks like a down year for the AFC North. That's a great one, Ari. I really like that one. So I just wanted to say, like, how do you think John Harbaugh leaving the Ravens is going to impact their special teams? I think it's going to look like dismal without Chris Horton there for the first time. The fact that he's now with the Giants, you'll be treated to something very, very special. He is awesome, and John Harbaugh really knows the special teams. But what do you think? Do you think that impact will be felt by the Ravens?
Yes, I absolutely think it will. Was it time to move on? I really think time's going to tell. And if things go for the Ravens kind of the way I anticipate that they will, which is not going to be a great season, and the Giants do have the season that I anticipate that they will, which is hopefully even a playoff spot, even as a wild card, I think people are going to really start asking that question. But specifically to the special teams, I do not see a world in which the Ravens special teams unit does not take a step backwards, and possibly even a major step backwards, with the loss of both John Harbaugh and, for that matter, special teams coach Chris Horton. I just don't think that you can replace that kind of knowledge at the special teams in what they have. I don't believe that the Ravens can replace. Again, I'm not talking about offense. I'm not talking about defense. Specifically on special teams, you don't just replace a head coach of Harbaugh's pedigree and a special teams coach of Chris Horton's pedigree. Those are not easily replaceable. And I just think that unit is going to take a major step backwards. And I think that is going to be a part of them not making the playoffs, because you have to play complementary football. You have to play at a high level on all three phases: offense, defense, and special teams. And with the special teams taking a major step back, are the defense and offense going to really be able to carry them? And I think the answer is no. I think that Minter's going to struggle, maybe not with the defense, but I think he's going to struggle with the offense. Special teams are going to struggle. And I think we are looking at if I'm a betting man, I don't think the Ravens are winning more than 7 games this season.
Wow.
Here's a hot take.
That's wow. That is quite the hot take, Ari. And just to give a little bit of a background and perspective to what we're talking about here, is John Harbaugh and Chris Horton are probably both top 5 special teams minds in the NFL right now. And historically speaking, whether it was Dave Tobe, who's the famous special teams coach now with the Chiefs, when he left the Bears, the year or even 2 years after that, their special teams was in disarray. When Mike Westhoff, another one of the generational special teams mind, left the Jets, again, their special teams for a year or two was in total disarray. And this is just the kind of thing that happens when you're talking about someone that is so much further past any one of their peers in terms of coaching and scheme, especially in special teams. You usually see a significant slide back, and that's why it's really critical to discuss this in terms of the Ravens losing not 1 but 2 really, really serious special teams minds.
All right. And with that being said, let's move on over to the fan favorite segment, which is Guess That Number. And I got to tell you, if we talk about the social clips for a second, yeah, not only is it a fan favorite in terms of our listeners and our viewers, everybody's loving this on social media. So we definitely got a good thing going here, Ari, and I'm excited to do another one of these with you. So it is your turn to guess first this week. So to reminder for our listeners, I went with number 98 this week. So Ari, before you even get into any hints or clues, do you have any idea who this might be?
I do, and for some reason, I'm not thinking of his first name. Oh, there we go. I got it. John Henderson. That's my call.
Who is John Henderson?
Oh, wouldn't you like to know, Ari Lev? Wouldn't you like to know who John Henderson is? John Henderson I think he was an all-pro defensive tackle for the Jaguars in the early 2000s. You have to remember him because at some point this year, I'm going to use him or Marcus Stroud. They were like one of the best and unsung defensive tackle combinations in the Jack Del Rio era Jaguars. They were both insane defensive tackles, and that's who John Henderson is. Already. So there you go.
Okay, well, it is not him. So with that being said, let's go ahead and give you some hints. So number one, this player was drafted in 2009 and played for 10 seasons. Does that say anything to you?
I am blinking.
Okay.
Can you give me the first overall pick from the 2009 draft?
Wasn't it Bradford?
Sam Bradford?
Was it?
I think that was
2008.
I think that was 2008.
Then I don't remember offhand. Well, he was drafted in the second round in 2009. So it would have no bearing on the first pick.
I'm just saying to give me a frame of reference, it's just easier for me than the year. It was Jameis Winston, the first overall pick in 2009.
Maybe. That sounds about right.
Okay, so he was drafted in the second round. No, he was drafted in 2015. I'm way off with Jameis Winston. I didn't mean Jameis Winston. Wait, was he the draft with Was it Winston Marcus Mariota? Am I getting very confused now?
I think you're getting very confused, and you're going very far away from our player who wore number 98. So let's bring this back.
Okay, second round in 2009. He played for 10 years. Wore number 98. I need another hint here, Ari. I am not in it at all.
Okay, he played for 4 different teams during his tenure, and 3 of those teams were in the NFC. 1 of those teams was in the AFC, and in fact, 2 of the teams that he played for in the NFC were actually in the NFC East.
Okay. What caliber of a player was he? Like starting tackle his whole career?
So he has played both linebacker and defensive end within his career.
So he was an edge.
Yes. He played 142 regular season games with 112 starts.
Okay, so was it for the Cowboys and the Redskins?
It was not. It was not.
Okay, so I am really nowhere even. I don't even have like any bit of a clue to get this guy, Ari. I have 0 clue. So if you could give me something that would focus me a little bit more.
All right, let's keep it moving. He is now in the front office of one of the teams he played for in the position of head of football development and strategy for one of the teams that he played for.
That doesn't give me anything. I have no idea. Front office guys, beside for like some of the key assistants and the GMs, I do not know. I just have no idea. I have 0 clue.
He played for the University of Cincinnati, and he was known to be unique in the fact that during his time at the University of Cincinnati, he played Division I, both football and basketball simultaneously.
I have no clue who this person is.
Okay. Is this going to be the first time I guess that number that you give up?
I've given up, Ari. I have zero idea. Like, I'm so stumped. I can't even tell you. It's not even worth continuing. I can't picture anything in my head. I'm just picturing like Ryan Kerrigan combined with Antonio Pierce. That's all I'm picturing.
All right. So let the record state and show that officially one of us has been stumped. And the answer to who I am talking about that famously wore number 98 would be none other than Connor Barwin, who was drafted by the Houston Texans in 2009, had a breakout season in 2011 with 11 and a half sacks. He played for them until 2012, the Eagles between 2013 and 2016, the Rams in 2017, and then wrapped up his playing career in 2018 with the New York Football Giants, actually. And today, he's the head of football development and strategy for the Philly Eagles.
So I got to say that this is exactly the reason why we do this, because I would have never remembered Connor Barwin. And it just happens there's some guys, okay, and I thought of this guy randomly a couple days ago, not to mention here, but maybe I'll use him at some point, that basically they were elite at football for a few seasons and we forget about them fairly quickly. And that's why we're doing this. So I really appreciate it. I would have never gotten it. I tip my hat to you, Ari. Very, very well done.
Woo! All right. I score 1 for Ari Love, 0 for Ari Berkowitz in terms of stumping. But I'm not going to sit here and tap myself on the back because it is now my turn to guess your number 16. So yes. Before I get into any hints, so to me, there's no way that it's one of these three. But my first guess would have to be, and they're all QBs, would be either Joe Montana, Jared Goff, or Trevor Lawrence.
No, they are none of those. Okay. It's much more similar to Connor Barwin of quarterbacks. And this guy was also actually drafted in the second round, but this guy was drafted in 1997, although he did also play for 10 seasons in the NFL.
Ooh, okay. So that's not actually who I thought it would be. Okay, so you're saying he was drafted in when again? Sorry?
1997 in the second round.
1997 in the second round. Is he on he's got to be offense, right? There's no way he's not.
Oh yeah, he's a quarterback. Like that was the thing. Like he's a quarter. I said he's the quarterback equivalent of Connor Barwin, meaning that he's a quarterback.
Oh, yeah, I guess that was obvious. Let's see. It wasn't Jake Plummer, was it?
It was Jake Plummer. That is.
Yes.
That was the guy.
Nice.
That was him.
And what threw me a little bit at first was the fact that he actually played wearing number 15.
What? He only wore 16 in his NFL career.
No. Jake the Snake Plummer wore 16 during his playoff contending years with the Broncos, but he had actually switched over from playing wearing number 15.
He wore 16 his entire NFL career, Ari, including with the Cardinals. I'm 100% sure of it.
All right, well, let's double check here if Jake Plummer did indeed. Let's see. Let's check this out. I'm looking this up right now.
Here, and to all of our viewers, okay, I want them to see Jake Plummer wearing number 16 with the Cardinals. There it is. Jake Plummer wearing 16 with the Cardinals. He only wore those two numbers. I don't know what number he wore in college, but yeah, I was very confident then. That's why I wanted to do this one. It's like because I knew that he was a 16 through and through.
I wonder why I thought he might have worn number 15, but either way, very happy that I was able to get your boy pretty quickly.
Oh my God.
And it's pretty cool that he's Jake the Snake. But very, very cool. And glad that I got your player. All right, so that wraps up another edition of Guess That Number. All right, before we bring this episode to a close, any final thoughts that come to mind before we wrap this up?
I just want to say that I checked his number at Arizona State, and it was also 16. So Jake Plummer has never not worn 16. I'm very curious where the 15 came from. In your head, as they say, memory is a fickle beast. So very interesting about that. But there was another famous quarterback on the Broncos who wore number 15, but we will not talk about him right now.
Okay, all right. Well, before we bring this episode to the close then, Ari, as we always do, we need to pick next week's Guess That Number numbers. So I know you always have a player in mind whose number you go ahead and then match. So do you have your number yet?
I do not. I went last, so you start us off, and I'll.
Okay, so I'm actually going to go with the number 3. Again, I don't know who the player is going to be yet, but I am going with number 3.
Okay, that's very strange because my guy is also number 3.
What?
Yeah. That's just how the cookie crumbles are. It's very random, but yes, number 3.
All right. Well, since we don't have any tiebreakers or anything to do in this scenario, I'm going to change under the guise of hypothetically having the same player, which would take away the fun from this. I am actually going to change my number, and I will go with number 60.
Okay, fine. If you're doing that, then I'm also going to change my number. Okay.
Well, then I'll just go back to number 3 then. We don't both need to change our number.
Why? That's how is that fair? If you change your number, then that means that we should both save our number 3 for a rainy day. And
fine.
We'll both do different numbers. So you got 60, and I'm going to take 86.
86. Okay. All right. So locking in those numbers. And by the way, to all of our listeners and viewers, if you have any guesses to whom we might be thinking of, whether it's number 86 or number 60, then please go ahead and leave us a comment or send us a DM or whatever it may be that you have a guess of who it may be. Reminder, just as a asterisk on that, Ari and I are only doing players from the time that either of us would have been alive to see these players. So we decided to do 1990 forwards. So this player would have had to have played since 1990 and not prior. But by all means, guys, go ahead, leave us a comment or send us a DM or a carrier pigeon. Carrier pigeon. There we go. That's the way to say it properly. All right. So on behalf of both Ari Berkowitz and me, Ari Lev. Yep, we are indeed Ari Squared. Go ahead, guys, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Go ahead and give us a follow on Instagram for fun clips throughout the week. And as always,
Ari, 1 second right before, okay? Let's make a bet that in our lifetimes we will see an NFL player named Perry or Pigeon. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, all right, and that might be a hint at another segment we've been kicking around for a while, Ari, which I think it is high time that we implemented, but more to come on that next episode. So with that, peace. We out.